How's it going, everyone? This is Dominick from the Comic Book Report YouTube channel doing another guest review for organicpricedbooks.com. And today we're taking a look at the Captain America by Nick Spencer Omnibus Volume 1. This omnibus was primarily written by Nick Spencer and illustrated primarily by Daniel Acuna and Angel Unzueta. The comics in this collection were initially published by Marvel Comics in 2015. The volume itself collects Captain America Sam Wilson, issues 1 through 17, Captain America Steve Rogers, issues 1 through 11, Avengers Standoff, Welcome to Pleasant Hill, Avengers Standoff, Assault on Pleasant Hill Alpha, Avengers Standoff, Assault on Pleasant Hill Omega, Civil War II, The Oath, and material from Free Comic Book Day 2016, Captain America. This omnibus edition is an oversized hardcover with nice glossy print paper stock, a sewn binding, and comes in at 888 pages. I do want to say as we examine the dust jacket here that this is the direct market cover for this omnibus. I'll go ahead and throw up a snippet of the standard edition cover so you can get an idea and compare the two. I believe the standard cover also has a slightly different spine as far as the image on the bottom goes. I do believe other than that though, the books are identical, but I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the different covers you can expect. For my preference, I definitely love this direct market cover. I like the more realistic kind of painted look of the cover, just really striking, but of course both covers are quite nice. I do like the back of this book as well. I just think it's a really clean look to the omnibus. I love that we have the star logo in the center. Overall, a really great dust jacket design. No complaints from me. It is another white spined Marvel omnibus, but again, I just think it looks really crisp and clean on that bookshelf. Now I do want to take a moment and examine that dust jacket one final time. Now we can take a look at those interior flaps and just see the whole dust jacket lay out, just to give you an idea here. Again, showcasing some great art you can expect within the book. And once I finish properly just showcasing this dust jacket one final time, we will go ahead and transition to taking a look at that under the dust jacket artwork that is printed on the hardback book itself. Okay, now as promised, here's the art on the hardback book itself. I am surprised given everything they could have drawn from for this omnibus that they went with this. However, I do think it looks nice. It's essentially Steve Rogers Captain America on one side and Sam Wilson Captain America on the other side. And everything kind of has this blue layer over it. It is a wraparound image, so you get one solid picture when you go ahead and open this hardback up. I love seeing the Under the Dust Jacket art prints. I don't think that this is a bad one. I like that it showcases the characters. It just surprised me. And lastly, before we dive into the meat of the overview, I just wanted to take one quick look at that sewn binding I mentioned earlier. I had no problems with my copy. I thought it was a really well-bound book. Now, there is some gutter loss on occasion, but I don't think that that should be unexpected at this point. But you can take a look as I flip through the collection to see for yourself what I'm talking about. Okay, and as we enter the book proper and begin our overview, I will also just say there isn't really a proper table of contents with page numbers and things like that. Instead, we have sort of a creative kind of attribution page that kind of outlines which creators wrote on which books throughout this book from cover to cover. So it kind of works like a mapping table of contents rather than an issue-by-issue numerical page number table of contents. Again, not uncommon for these modern omnibuses, but it is missed a little bit, having that kind of traditional table of contents to quickly index the issues you're looking for. The collection itself begins with a handful of comic books following Sam Wilson as Captain America. I believe he took over sometime during the Remender run, which immediately preceded this Nick Spencer era on the title. That being said, I do think that this is still a great place for new readers of Captain America to jump in. If you're looking for more of a modern Captain America, maybe you've already checked out Brubaker, maybe not. Maybe this just caught your eye as a fan of Falcon and Winter Soldier, or I don't know. At any rate, I think this run was really accessible. We obviously start with an issue 1 of Sam Wilson Captain America, so it really is ground floor. We get really caught up quickly and up to date on where Sam Wilson stands in the public eye as Captain America, taking over for Steve Rogers, who is still around in the background, kind of working for S.H.I.E.L.D. At this point, he does not have the super soldier serum, so he's actually an older man at the beginning of this omnibus. And it's just a really interesting time in the history of some of these characters. We get to see Sam Wilson have a very decidedly different take on the Captain America mantle, kind of really carving out his own way and standing up for his own set of ideals and belief systems and trying to effect a very different kind of change as Captain America. I think overall the Sam Wilson issues were written very, very well. I will admit there were points that it dragged a little bit for me, but overall I think these issues were really strong. We also have the Captain America Steve Rogers series, the first 11 issues of that, and that was also really fun. We had at one point basically two Captain Americas sharing the mantle, both being Captain Americas, and it was really just a kind of fun book. This is a volume 1, so presumably there will at least be a volume 2 for this Nick Spencer era. The book does feel like you're closing a chapter by the end of it, but it does leave you a little bit on a cliffhanger anticipating the volume that comes next. I will say overall, for me, I do prefer things like the Ed Brubaker run on Captain America, but I think that this was a perfectly serviceable run. If you follow this run a little bit more closely, you might know it is a very polarizing run. A lot of fans feel really, really extreme one way or the other about it, particularly for some decisions they made with the character of Steve Rogers' Captain America, which I'll try not to spoil in this video. Suffice it to say, a lot of the primary cast of the Captain America franchise undergo some changes throughout Nick Spencer's run. It was definitely pretty illuminating, and it was a really fresh perspective to take on some of these characters, and a lot of really interesting directions I'd never seen done before in a Captain America book. Something to note though, this book does get a little bit political, which you could probably guess from a Captain America book. It's definitely not out of bounds for a Captain America book to really lean on some political ideologies, things like that. So you definitely get a lot of that, like contrasting agendas and political parties happening in kind of a discourse throughout the book. Some kind of subtextual and some very just overt and in your face. I found that to be a little bit tiresome in general as I progressed through it. But luckily, there were a handful of plot lines that were really interesting that definitely buoyed up my interest in this book, particularly the big event, the Pleasant Hill story that we have within this book. I'm not really sure how this whole run in general is regarded, especially this Pleasant Hill story, but I really was a fan of it. It is an interesting kind of science fiction convention where they basically are in this town that everything just feels kind of not right. We don't really know what's going on. There's a lot of townspeople that are confused or have memory problems, and we're kind of thrown into it. We're not even really sure which character we're following or how Captain America and team are involved with this whole town. And it was kind of just a political intrigue, science fiction kind of thriller. It went on for a handful of issues, but I really enjoyed it. I think narratively that was one of the high bars of this whole omnibus. Again, a ton of fun. Another plot point we see throughout this book in varying degrees is revolving around a cosmic cube, which if you're not really a fan of Captain America comics, this is the thing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that's called the Tesseract. Fans of the comics know these things as cosmic cubes, and I think they're definitely utilized in a really unique manner throughout this run. A lot of plot points have to do with a cosmic cube in one way or another, and that was another narrative high point for me in this entire omnibus. Overall, there were a handful of very strong stories that I was fully engaged in, even if not all of them maybe met that mark for me. Character-wise, like I said, we get a ton of Sam Wilson Captain America, which I really enjoyed. We even have the appearance of a new Falcon, which again I'll leave to you to read, but really fun wrinkles there. You know, Sam Wilson gets his own Falcon sidekick. Very, very fun. A couple appearances from Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, which I liked as well. And again, very notable appearances from Steve Rogers' Captain America. I would say he close to shares billing in this omnibus as a whole. He becomes much more prevalent as we progress into the omnibus. But overall, it is a pretty balanced book as far as Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers, and it definitely took some directions I had never really seen before in Captain America comics. As far as the art goes throughout the omnibus, it did change hands a handful of times throughout the run, so we get a lot of different artistic styles, though some appear fairly familiar. I think some are a little more animated or cartoony for my taste, but there was a handful of art that I just really resonated with and really enjoyed. Particularly something to note that I thought was interesting, in a lot of the Captain America Steve Rogers issues, there was a prevalent use of flashbacks that had kind of a more muted color palette, but with splashes of red. read. Really interesting artistic touch that really helped timestamp like when some of these events took place in these flashbacks. Thought that was really well done, and overall, like I said, there was some really eye-popping imagery throughout this book. I think the artists all did a fantastic job, definitely worth commending. And as we finish our collection, we do have a healthy portion of extras at the back of this omnibus, I am very happy to say, including a lot of variant cover art. Love seeing this. There were so many covers regarding these issues here, and I really love seeing so many of the different variant covers. We got a handful from Scotty Young, which are some of my personal favorite. They almost read like kind of comic newspaper strips. Some of them even have jokes. Just a ton of fun. Overall, very satisfied with the extras included at the back of this omnibus collection. No real complaints from me there. I think overall this was a fun read. It definitely picks up steam as you go through it. I will say this is not my high bar in the Captain America franchise. I'm always probably going to be an Ed Brubaker Captain America boy first. But that being said, this definitely added something to the mythos. I was really engaged reading it. It was a ton of fun to read more of Captain America Sam Wilson. I haven't had a ton of chance to make my way through all of the remainder era there, so it was really fun, really dipping my toe into that world. I love the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV series, so seeing Sam Wilson as Captain America, I just really, really enjoyed it. This book definitely had a lot to say, and even if I didn't love every part of this book, I'm still really happy I read it. Definitely interested to hear what all of you think about the Nick Spencer era of Captain America in the comments below. If you're interested in picking up your own copy of this or the standard edition, I highly recommend you jump on to organicpricedbooks.com and check it out. And if you want more reviews from me, Dominick, please check out my channel, The Comic Book Report, on YouTube. Thank you so much, and until next time, have a good one.